me, the lady who knows a lot about chameleons. So today we're going to be going over some signs that your chameleon may be sick. You're either watching this because you think there may be something wrong already, or maybe you're proactively watching this to try and make sure that you know the signs of a sick chameleon. Either way, I'm here to help. So without further ado, let's get into the video. So it's important that we first talk about how with chameleons there's not a big margin for error unless their enclosure is exactly right. I'm talking temperatures, UVB, humidity, supplementation, enclosure. Everything has to be exactly how it's supposed to be in order for your chameleon to thrive. If you're cutting corners or using the incorrect supplies, there's a very high likelihood that your chameleon will get sick. Additionally, you could have everything set up correctly and they will still get sick. There's only so much that we can control, but making sure that your care is on point is step one. So feel free to check out all my other videos to learn all about chameleon care. Secondly, I am not a vet. I just have lots and lots of experience with chameleons and mentoring thousands of people on chameleon care. However, that does not replace the expertise that comes with veterinary care. So I would encourage you, if you're noticing anything unusual with your chameleon, that you get them into a vet as soon as possible. Also, please excuse Neptune, who is currently climbing on the side of the screen, and I can hear his little nails climbing all over the enclosure. Dude, just chill out. Hang out on a branch. Have a good time. Be good. All right, let's get into the signs of sickness. So also, one more thing to say is just because your chameleon is exhibiting one of these things does not mean it's a life or death situation. Some of them are life or death. If you have a bunch of these symptoms, that very well could be life or death. But one of these things alone may not be cause for like red flag and sirens yet. But it may be a preemptive sign that something needs to be corrected about their care sooner rather than later. So the first one we're going to talk about is closed eyes. I did make an entire video all about closed eyes, but if your chameleon's eyes are closed during the day, this is a sign of either stress or sickness. Chameleons do not take naps, so that's number one. Sticking with eyes, if your chameleon's eyes are sunken in or swollen, that would definitely be cause for concern. If your chameleon is losing appetite, that is not usually a good thing. I will say as the chameleon is getting older, they will sometimes decrease the amount of food that they're eating just because they're not growing as much as when they're little. But it's all about your chameleon's appetite. If it's unusual for them, then that's something that you should keep an eye on. If your chameleon has a weak grip, that's something that you should be worried about. Chameleons are crazy climbers and they grip on with their feet, and so if your chameleon is having a hard time gripping onto branches, then that's usually a sign that they're not doing so hot. Also, if your chameleon is grabbing its own legs, like typically it'll be the back leg that'll like try and grab the front arm, this is usually a sign of metabolic bone disease, which can be fatal. If your chameleon has visible cheekbones, so that's something that would be a sign of being underweight. This could be because of a parasite, internal organ failure, some other health concern. It's normal for us to be able to see their ribs, but as soon as we start seeing their cheekbones and their tailbones, then that tells us that our chameleon is underweight, and either we need to start feeding them more, or there's some other underlying health issue that's causing them to drop weight quickly. If your chameleon is gaping or opening their mouth, there's a couple of reasons why this could be happening, and I did make a video about this, but gaping, if it's just to regulate temperature and heat, usually isn't a red flag, but if that gaping is paired with a couple other symptoms, such as hissing or their head being tilted up, that could be an indicator of an upper respiratory infection that would require vet care. All right, we're trying to move quickly because there's a bunch of these. But if the head is tilted upwards, like I said, that is like a cause for concern. That is a super unusual behavior, and if they're doing that, then that's like something needs to change. If there is excess of saliva, now this is subjective. Like, what does excess mean? If there's just a little bit of saliva, I mean, it is a mouth after all, there will be saliva. But if it's more than you usually see with your chameleon, then you need to start looking at other symptoms and seeing if there's something else going on. Along with the saliva are weird noises while breathing. Chameleons don't really sneeze. They should be pretty quiet, so if you're hearing any like popping, wheezing sounds, again, that can be an indicator of an upper respiratory infection and would be not good. This next one is pretty obvious. If you're seeing blood of any kind coming from any location, that is definitely something that you need to investigate further. Did they cut themselves? Did they injure themselves? Are they prolapsing? Are they bleeding from somewhere? Like, blood is not a good sign. If you're just seeing a little bit with their poop, then maybe you monitor their poops a little bit more, but just know that blood is not normal and is something that you should do something about. This next one, let's talk about the mouth a little bit. So if the mouth is, if there's like blackened teeth or discoloration in the mouth, this could be an indicator of mouth rot. Now, chameleon's teeth aren't going to be pearly white and shiny. A lot of chameleons will actually have yellow colored skin kind of inside of their mouth. What we're looking for is unusual behavior. This is why it's really important that you establish some sort of baseline for what your chameleon looks like when they're healthy. So then when you're noticing any changes, and you're like, oh, okay, that wasn't there before. So making sure that their teeth are not black or discolored and there's no random spots of discoloration within the inside of their mouth, because again, that could be mouth rot. Alrighty, next one is any bumps or lumps. Typically, I'll see bumps along the side of the body, and then I will see lumps underneath the neck. If they're underneath the neck, that could be an indication of edema, which can sometimes be the result of incorrect or over supplementation. And then any bumps on the body, there's a bunch of different reasons that could be happening. It could be some like bacterial infection, it could be a broken bone that's recovering, something else going on. Again, those are outside the scope of just general chameleon care. That is something that would require veterinary attention. Vomiting. So if your chameleon is throwing up their food, that could definitely be problematic. This actually happened to Neptune. He's thrown up twice since owning him. The first time I was like, that's weird, let me monitor him, and then he did it again, and then I immediately took him to the vet. Right after that, they did blood work and testing and all the good stuff, so definitely make sure if your chameleon is vomiting that you bring them to the vet. Coloration. Now this is a tricky one because chameleons change colors for a variety of reasons, but a sick chameleon can either be very, very dark or very, very light. Either way, they're going to be outside their normal base colors, but your chameleon could be a darker color or a lighter color for a variety of reasons. It could be due to temperature, it could be due to stress. That's why it's important that we understand all the different symptoms and environmental factors that could be influencing our chameleon's health and behavior to understand if that coloration is cause for concern. If it's just colors all by itself, then I'm gonna guess it's something within their environment that's influencing that. But if you pair that with closed eyes and gaping and lack of appetite and weak grip and weird colors, that is like red flag, something's wrong, it needs immediate attention. A few more to go. Next one we're gonna talk about is broken bones. So chameleons don't typically break their bones, but if they're not having the correct UVB and calcium supplementation, then that makes their bones weaker and more susceptible to breaking. A healthy chameleon should be able to take a fall, no problem. It's not something that I would encourage, but you know, they jump from the trees in the wild or fall in the wild and they're fine. Neptune's had quite a few spills when he was a baby because he was trying to climb something that was slippery and couldn't quite hold on, and he bounced back and was totally fine. Now, if that's a chameleon that's already weak and sick, then there's a very high likelihood that they'll break their bones, in which case, you guessed it, gotta go to a vet. Broken bones are usually pretty obvious because they're gonna look, you know, not quite the right shape. Old breaks, sometimes I see this on like Petco purchases, they'll have little bumps along their ribs, and that's typically old breaks that have calcified and have healed. I don't know if those of you who are watching have heard of a prolapse. That's a pretty common chameleon illness and concern. A prolapse is any time the little slit underneath the chameleon's base of the tail, which is like where they will like do pretty all of their business, comes out of that little slit and hole. But also a prolapse is when something basically inside of them falls out, sticks out. It could either be like their hemipenes, it could be an organ, it could be just like a little piece of like sperm hanging out, something. But a prolapse is typically when an organ or some internal something that's supposed to stay inside comes out. Now, a prolapse can be fatal, but it can also be something that your chameleon will recover from. It just totally depends on how severe the prolapse is and how quickly you're able to act. There's tons of information on Chameleon Academy and Chameleon forums on prolapses and really all these health topics. This isn't the video for like understanding how to necessarily fix all these things, but more to bring awareness, so then you can go and be like, oh, okay, this is something I should be concerned about, and then do something about it. So prolapses are very, very time sensitive and need to be addressed immediately in order for your chameleon to even remotely have a chance of surviving. Okay, let's switch gears and talk about tails. So if the tip of the tail is blackened or starting to curl or rot, that could be an indicator of tail rot. Any sort of kinks or discoloration within the tail would be not something that is normal. There are, however, some babies that will get into fights when they're younger, or will get their tail stuck in an enclosure door or something like that, in which case they may just stay like that throughout their entire lives. But if your chameleon's tail looks totally fine one day and then there's something funky going on with it the next day, then that's when you know that you should look into that a little bit more. Chameleon poop. So for those of you who don't know, you have the poop part and then you have the white part, cream part, which is the urate, the chameleon pee. If it's mostly white or cream, then you know your chameleon is staying hydrated. Where it can be problematic is if that urate, that pee part, is bright orange. That can be an indicator of dehydration and is a sign of either sickness or something that needs to change within your care. A big one is if a chameleon is unable to climb. So chameleons are arboreal creatures, which means they are tree dwellers and tree climbers. So if your chameleon is unable to climb due to some health issues, then that is like one of the last things that happens before a chameleon passes away. So if your chameleon's at the point of not being able to climb with the weak grip, with the bent bones, then that's when this is like a 911 emergency, gotta go to the vet like right now. Like that is on its way out the door. And then I mentioned the bendy bones, so that's typically a sign of metabolic bone disease when your chameleon is starting to pull calcium from the bones because it doesn't have the correct supplementation in UVB for all the synthesis and processing of things that need to happen internally. So if your chameleon arm isn't at 90 degrees and is starting to have some curvature, or the availed chameleon's casque is starting to bend over like this, those are all signs of metabolic bone disease. And last but not least are tongue issues. If your chameleon is not able to shoot its tongue out all the way, or it shoots out crooked, or anything like that, that is typically either a supplementation issue or a tongue injury. This is why I don't encourage people to tongue feed directly with metal tongs, because I've seen way too many times of someone's chameleon's tongue get stuck on the tongue and wasn't able to retract, or you accidentally yanked your arm back, and then it results in a tongue injury that most often results in amputation, which is obviously very difficult for the chameleon to then eat bugs. So we want to avoid doing that. So if you're noticing any tongue issues, I would investigate if an injury happened and then correct your supplementation. And last but not least, if you see any unusual behavior with your chameleon, step 1 is to monitor it, and step 2 is to do something about it. Whether that's with your care or with a vet, you have lots of resources available for you guys to learn more about chameleon care through my videos, and again, Chameleon Academy and Chameleon Forums. Those are both places that I can vouch for that I know have correct chameleon care. Anywhere else on the internet, sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not so good. So I would just encourage you to do your correct research and make sure that you set your chameleon up for success. And if you are noticing any of these symptoms, that you're able to correct your care quickly and hopefully have your chameleon make a swift recovery. So I know this is a lot of information, but hopefully you find it helpful. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. Leave any questions or comments down below. Feel free to subscribe so you know when I post a new video. Follow Neptune and all my chameleons on social media at Neptune the Chameleon. As always, down in the description box below, you will find my discount links, Patreon merch, and links to video consulting where you can chat with me one-on-one, including reviewing your enclosure and talking through some health concerns if you don't have a vet available in your area. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye! If you're words are hard. Hi, Neptune.